Good evening. First of all, I already know that it is possible to have some sort of phone app set up, if nothing else, that will make you real time aware of information concerning any efforts to access websites. It could also be the kind of thing that you don't need to check constantly, right? It could be something you check in with periodically, or that maybe sends you a notice if there are certain, shall we say, metrics that are hit. And after a certain number of hits, it could send you a text message or it could send you some sort of information so you could actually be apprised of these things. And technically speaking, I understand that if you have a major institution or organization, up to and including some sort of political subdivision or government agency, you would need to have several people that would actually be in that role. It's just a matter of vigilance. I think it's a no brainer. It's just common sense in the age we're in. That also means that you would have people that would periodically be assigned to do regular maintenance on the back end of anything you put online. Now, me being who I am, this is one of those things. You give me no acknowledgement that you are going to comport yourself with an understanding that I've already put into the public realm, an understanding that I see and understand on a daily basis what I'm being subjected to as part of whatever decisions were made by somebody else. And I do not have the means at my disposal to actually be able to access the back end and to make adjustments. I have, in just the last 2 weeks, provided several notices about how my emails and things in the actual websites have been remotely accessed by somebody else and altered, including that certain videos I've posted will have time frames where they'll just be silent. The clock will still run, but there won't be any actual information. Somebody decided to do this. Somebody decided that for whatever reason they thought they had the prerogative to do this. And I know if they're doing it to me, they're doing it to other people. But this is not the kind of thing where it's foreign hacking. That's not what this is. And that's not what it's been the whole time. It would have been very important for somebody to be able to provide those very important cybersecurity roles in a very basic manner and to keep up on it and to be able to maintain it. This is just a very simple, basic thing. And if you do that and somebody tries to penetrate or somebody tries to infiltrate, you would be able to catch it at least in enough time to make sure that you don't have intentionally, materially altered information on official government websites while deals are running overnight over on the other side of the world. I've been watching this for the entire 2 years and more that I've been posting online. I can't tell you how many times there have been major announcements, including major announcements connected to the Federal Reserve directly, where there is literally material misinformation on government websites overnight. And I acknowledge it. I make my own report. I even post it real time. But I mean, if you're going to decide just not to get back to me in several years, there's very little more I can do than to try to keep up on this. And that's kind of a situation we're in right now. Tomorrow, it's after 8:30 here, so it's almost 9 o'clock, which means tomorrow will be 14 days until very important August 24th. Now, I already know that there's a number of matters related to August 24th as an anniversary or as a benchmark anyway, but I've just found information, and it made me consider something I published last year during Hurricane Laura. I have another video somewhere that will not be the one that I include at the end of this, where I discuss how during the time frame that Hurricane Laura was happening, I understood that something was being set up and that there was something that was supposed to materialize as a result of that setup, and it did. It did in two ways. One of the major ways it did is in the storm event that happened here in Texas, but it also happened in connection with floods that occurred in Pakistan. And there were a number of public notices and articles that were published that were detailing how people on social media in Pakistan were responding to the flood. And I contend that what it revealed was that on some level there was knowledge that there was a very significant form of electronic warfare that was being engaged in Pakistan. By who, I cannot say. But my understanding is that it was connected to what was happening with the events concerning Hurricane Laura. One of the things about Hurricane Laura that was very concerning is that if you watch the video, you will notice I discuss how at that time there was an executive order on the office of the White House website. Please let me tell you, if somebody decided they were just going to hack it for a temporary period of time, it was the official electronic record of the White House. And official electronic records of the various agencies of the federal government are the official records of the people. Tampering with them for any reason is tampering with government records. There's no excuse for it. You don't get to materially alter the actual official government record for any reason, up to and including hooking up a finance deal that ends up materializing later into what we're dealing with now. Shortly around the time that this was happening, there was a update. There was matters concerning the Office of the Comptroller Currency, specifically regarding its semi-annual risk perspectives. I was reviewing them after having reviewed them first in 2018, and I saw what appeared to be discontinuity insofar as the information I was finding at the time did not match with what I had found before. It was slightly altered, specifically regarding information on 5-year loans that had been given to the gas and oil sector that were supposed to start coming due around the same time that there was supposed to be massive movement in the mortgage sector, specifically around single family homes, in the period of time where they were coming out of payment on interest and moving into a payment on premium. Now, I've never owned a home, and I've never been a gas and oil company that's taken out a 5-year loan. But the manners that these discussions were being had and other things that were going on socio-politically, including and especially in the state of Texas, concerning real property and appraisals on real property connected to other things that I was investigating, had me concerned that there was something about these trends that were going to be materially relevant. At the beginning of 2021, there was 2 periods over the course of the last year where the Office of the Comptroller of Currency had their website down, presumably for some form of maintenance. It was one of those overnight things where the website was supposed to be down so they could do some updates. But when the updates occurred, and after the updates occurred, the information in the actual Office of Comptroller reports was materially different. It had been altered. They had hacked the actual reports to reflect things that were different. And one of the things it did is it recounted how aspects of the real estate market had been distressed. It specifically characterize aspects of the housing market specifically connected to single family homes as being a period of distress. This is not something that was in these reports for those time frames at the time that those reports were released, at least up through 2018 or between 2018 and beginning of 2020. Prior to COVID-19, those reports did not say what they did at the beginning of 2021. Shortly after that, there was a release of information from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. One of the pieces of information they released was an index. My contention is that this index is fraudulent. I've said this before. I contend that they created that index after they altered information concerning the real estate market, and also use that altered information connected to the real estate market in the course of covering up for people altering stock reports, including stock reports and information submitted to the SEC to backdate the stock. They were representing at later dates that earlier events had happened differently than they reported them as having happened at the time. This is something I've been watching for 3 years. And I'm very concerned because presumably at the end of this month, there is supposed to be a period of time where Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to consider some form of refinancing. What does this mean? What does this mean, especially in consideration of the fact that they have been talking about auctioning off these tranches of loans that have been designated as reperforming? But are they reperforming after being distressed? Is that what we're dealing with right now? Did you intentionally distress assets that were being used to finance other people's houses and finance schemes using deals based on other people's houses as well, and then trying to compel them to respond in an emergency in a manner that would ex post facto establish you had a claim to begin with, and hence subjecting them to some form of lien in order to collect could be justified? So what kind of refinancing are they looking at? Is it accurate? Is there actually an upsurge in announcements regarding rates of infection by COVID-19 of children and minors, including babies? including those under 2 years of age, as of today? Are these numbers accurate? Or are they going to change like they did around this time last year, when the same organizations released numbers discussing rates of infection among youth, which were about what, 20,000 less than they are now? Actually, not 20,000, right? I'm not going to mince with the numbers. The point of the matter is, around this time last year, those same organizations made a public announcement about the rates of infection of children and young people in the country. And then at some point in time later, what happened to that information? What happened to the information at the onset of COVID-19 about the rates of infection, including and especially regarding children in other countries, such as Italy? The information available now is completely different than it was. And March, April, May, June of 2020. What ended up happening at the beginning of this year when they were reporting rates of infection among children in India? What they're doing right now is very alarming. This is not just about an emergency. This is about a moral failing. We have to be able to admit and acknowledge what is going on. I am doing what I can right now in order to apprise you of these situations to the best I can, but it was very alarming last year that these matters were not attended to directly and officially. There was an announcement that was made by former Secretary of Treasury Steve Mnuchin as part of a press conference he attended with several other people, including members of the national security establishment, where they were talking about how they were going to bring criminal charges against anybody that was identified as being an abuser of the COVID relief efforts. That did not exclude people that had an exclusive contract with one of the world's biggest investment management firms. That did not exclude people that regularly do high volume business through the stock exchange, either in the United States or in any other country. And the characterizations of the notices that Treasury is allowing to be revealed now concerning those announcements that happened at the time are also evidence of a massive cover-up. But I contend now, as I did then, that America, including the people we in this country have allowed to represent themselves as if they are empowered or somehow justified saying they represent us, have to step up and take responsibility for this crime. This is a very, very, very serious crime. We're on the cusp of the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. More than enough information has been revealed in order to challenge the validity of any claims staked on September 11th. This is not acceptable under any circumstances.